you can have AI make outbound calls. And it's becoming so good now that the natural language processing they're using, you can just speak to it like a normal person. And it's become incredibly useful. Um, of course, many people have used tools like ChatGPT to create content for whether it's their website or marketing collateral. So you can create very specialized marketing geared towards people, especially if you're using what's called an AI agent, which is a lot more powerful than just a chatbot like ChatGPT.
Welcome to Insurance Shoptalk. This is the podcast where the world of commercial insurance gets a little closer to home. I'm your host, Eric Stein, and in every episode, we're taking a deep dive into the insurance industry. From the latest news and trends to in-depth interviews with insurtech experts, carriers, and agency newsmakers, we're covering it all. So sit back, tune in, and let's start the conversation. Well, I'm very excited today. I've got Dale Thomas here, who is an AI expert. And I know as agents, we're all trying to get ahead of the curve and learn the model of using AI in our agencies, wholesale operations, CSRs, I think are using it quite a bit, to help complete applications rather than just doing Google searches. So, a lot of cool stuff that's happening in the industry with AI. And Dale has written a book and owns a firm that helps small companies and agencies in general with AI and how to integrate it within their business and their operations. So Dale, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. So, well, to get us kicked off, why don't you, Dale, get into a little bit about actionable ops and your new book and kind of your background and as well. And I know you were more in supplemental insurance in the past, but
Mhm.
you can talk a little bit about how your insurance knowledge could help to guide this conversation.
Sure. So as Eric mentioned, I'm with Actionable Ops. We are an AI consulting firm that specializes in training AI, responsible AI, ethical AI, and implementation to help small business owners succeed with Gen AI and Vision AI and some of the other AI tools. We do shy away from saying we're experts only because it's and we gravitate to saying we're more AI explorers. And I say that because AI to most of us is still really new. Even though AI has been around since the 1950s, it's only really become this thing in the last couple of years, and myself included. I have an operations background, 20 years or not 20 years at Microsoft, 20 years in operations, 10 of it at Microsoft. And I've spent my career around the operational space and always looking for tools to help increase productivity. I dipped out of operations, as Eric mentioned, into the supplemental space and realized how incredibly challenging it is as a new agent. And if only I had some of these tools that now back then, maybe it would have been a little different because I was fascinated with the space and loved the concept of renewal and residual income, and it was great. So, as Eric also mentioned, I wrote the book, The Ultimate AI Guide to Small Business Success. Happy to say it's become a bestseller on Amazon. So it is available there in both Kindle and paperback format.
No, congrats on that. I know
Thank you.
that's very time consuming and so that's phenomenal that you got that out there. Good timing on the subject matter too, of course.
Yes. Well, I will say that as far as timing, one of the things when I was writing the book, and I realized as I was writing it, uh, that even the knowledge that I had was starting to become outdated with like specific GPT models. So I didn't want to spend 6 months writing a book that would be completely outdated. So, which is one of the reasons why it's a quicker read, but it's I think jam packed with information for business owners. And I did that because mainly just because I wanted to be able to get it out to market and get something in business owners' hands that was relatively up to date before I had to update it and put out a new version.
Right. I think you probably could doing a new version like every 3 to 4 weeks, unfortunately, because the way it's changing
Absolutely.
so quickly, that I've noticed and read, just a little bit I know about it. But yeah, why don't we kind of dive into, I guess the first generic area, Dale, would be, because I'm in sales, in production, and, some suggestions on how PNC agents and CSRs can utilize some services with AI to help with sales and marketing. Are there any, and again, I know you address this quite a bit with the business population. So, and it all relates because we're all in sales and it's a similar model if you're going selling B2B or what have you.
Mhm. Sure. So I think a lot of different areas that agents can look at if they have their own website and they have access to the website. I know some carriers and you have to use their website, but if you have your own website, you can start putting chatbots on there. And I know that's starting to become a bigger trend where the chatbot can learn from your information. You can provide your specific whether it's frequently asked questions or specific information about your product as much as that you can train it on. Um, there's AIs that you can do around voice automation where maybe there's an AI answering your phone calls, that first level of basic questions that your customers or pre-customers may have. You can have AI make outbound calls, and it's becoming so good now that the natural language processing they're using, you could just speak to it like a normal person, and it's become incredibly useful. Um, of course, many people have used tools like ChatGPT to create content for whether it's their website or marketing collateral. So you can create very specialized marketing geared towards people, especially if you're using what's called an AI agent, which is a lot more powerful than just a chatbot like ChatGPT. Think of an agent as a Swiss Army knife that has multiple tools associated with it, so it can do multiple things versus a chatbot, which really just is a conversational tool. So speaking of ChatGPT, I want to make sure that we're very clear through this conversation that for insurance agent, I'd be very careful how you use ChatGPT and that you're not uploading customer policies to ChatGPT. What a lot of people don't realize, and unless something's changed within the last couple months, if you are using ChatGPT and you're providing it with customer information, it's learning from that information. So another person could be doing research on ChatGPT and find your customer's information. So never put your customer information in ChatGPT. That said, there is a setting within ChatGPT that they've recently put in there where you can turn off the ability to learn, but then also that turns off the ability to maintain your chat history. So you'll lose that function. Now, if you're using a tool, um, like if you have ChatGPT integrated with your CRM or with another platform like Text Cortex, and it's done through what's called their API, then it will not train their models, and it's a lot safer with your customer data because it's not learning from your information.
No, that's good to know. So, like as an example, and we kind of talked through this when we first spoke on the phone, with that if let's say they want to compare on a renewal, the policy information to a new proposal, competitive proposal, if they redact that client information and it's just going straight for the language changes and discrepancies in the policy documents, is that okay?
Yeah, I would think so. Um,
I mean, they could
there,
literally just take the page off, usually the deck page that has that client name on it, and just make sure it doesn't appear somewhere else. There may be a couple of
yeah, if
places
it
within a policy where you actually see the client name. Otherwise, it's like an ISO standard form, and then
right.
it could just say, show the discrepancies with this policy versus that policy, and then it'll summarize, right? So we're not giving out data, What are your thoughts on that?
No, I would agree. I mean, that's definitely one way to do it. Is you can, as long as I guess you're removing that PII, that personal identifiable information, then you should be okay. I know there's tools that I've mentioned it already, Text Cortex, which is the platform that I personally use. And I do provide a customer data at times. and I put it in what's called a knowledge base. So I could put all my customer information into a knowledge base and now interact and have conversations around that customer specific information. And I do it because Text Cortex will allow me to chat with GPT-4, which is OpenAI, GPT-3.5, Claude, all of the really popular models that are out there. But I do it through the Text Cortex platform. So it's much more secure, in my opinion. One, because they're based in Europe, so they have GDPR requirements. So that said, if your carrier, your organization has any kind of customer privacy issues about the data being stored outside of the US, it's something to be aware of. The company, specifically Text Cortex, is based in Germany, so they also have German regulations on top of the GDPR. So I feel very safe about my and comfortable where my customer data is, which is one of the reasons why I use Text Cortex, because I can, again, chat with customer information and feel safe and secure about doing so. And I know it's
That's
done in
smart.
an ethically responsible way.
And then we jump right into security, but like going back a minute about, you mentioned an AI agent, I believe. That's right. What was the
Mhm.
term you used?
It's an agent, yeah.
An agent. So tell me
Yep.
so tell me what that will do for us, as an agent.
So an AI agent, and if you're not already familiar with like building tools, it may get a little overly complex, but you can have an agent do multiple things. For example, I was building an agent yesterday for a client where you can give it basic keyword information, and it's an SEO agent. And what it would do is go out and review the URLs on Google, and it do some keyword research, find out which keywords are performing well. It would come back and then it would start writing blog articles based off the keywords that it found and the articles and all the information that it found. It would write blog articles. Then it would, another piece of that agent would then now start posting those blog articles on your, if you had a WordPress type of website. So you really had three different agents acting together as one, to perform an end-to-end SEO blog publishing task. And that's what agents are really, really good for. Other examples of agents would be something a little bit more familiar with people, whether it's Google Home or if you're using Alexa or Siri. Those are different types of AI agents where you can interact with them. They're kind of, I don't want to say free thinking, but they're like these autonomous type of tools that aren't necessarily directly just chatting with you.
So it sounds like it can make in one agent or multiple, it can make multiple steps, take multiple steps. So you don't have to
Absolutely.
watch it every time. It goes out, search the SEO, figures out what the popular information is that's out there in your industry, then knows to go ahead and write the blog and then post it on your website. It's like all these 3 or 4 steps all in one versus you going on, let's say, Chat GPT and doing all 3 of those yourself. It's doing it automatically.
Absolutely.
And then you can set it up to do it at X in intervals, I assume, every month or whatever.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes,
That's
I have
perfect.
one that does do some publishing and posts for me on my website, and I can't even tell you when it's going to do it because it has a specific day and time, and it just runs and it just drops these articles on my website. So that's one way you can use it. There is a I'm starting to work with a financial planner. One of the things that we're going to do is document identification, and I see this might even be something like agents may do, where if you get a lot of different types of documents, you can do what's called classification within an agent, and it'll look at that document, whether it's done scanning and using like OCR to look at that document to tell, is it a pay stub, is it a financial report, is it whatever type of document it is. So if you're doing claims and for whatever reason the customer is bringing you the information, you can scan it and have your AI take a look at, maybe it's, I don't know, an accident report or a medical report, and it's automatically classifying these documents on the agent's behalf. And then maybe it's taking a look, if it's an accident report, it's scanning that, making sure it has all the information it needs because it knows what your carrier looks for when filing claim, or when you're filing claims on your customer's behalf, and alerting you that you're missing something within the document. So there's different types of agents that you can create for that specific purpose,
Yeah,
which
and I think
makes
as you're speaking, I'm kind of turning it into the property and casualty world in that, a lot of agencies are set up to do the claim, workers' compensation claim intake and sort of
Mhm.
shadowing what the carrier is doing. And basically, I think we could possibly, set up an agent, if you will, to you know, when that claim comes in, sort of categorize things, look at, make sure it's filled out completely, if there's missing information, and then secondly, start, creating like reports and trend reports to say this client is having
Yep.
falls off ladders, and then, and those agents that have risk management, could then say, hey, let's have a risk management call about ladder safety and fall protection, and sort of again pick up on it just through their simple claims reporting, and be
Absolutely.
proactive about helping the client, So there's all this
Absolutely.
creativity that can be used now where you don't have the time, that person just trying to get right now in an agency, it's usually one or maybe two people that are dealing with claims, and they're getting bombarded. They don't have the time to get proactive. They're just trying to get that claim process so the injured worker gets back to work or, gets assistance, right?
Right. And kind of to add onto that, you can have an agent monitoring your emails and doing some initial responding back to customers in your voice, meaning that it'll learn from all your emails on how you specifically talk, and then it'll respond back to the customer or the client to help them out. Maybe they're just looking for, where to find a claim or a frequently asked question, but then it also can do that sentiment analysis of this customer starts, sound like they're getting really annoyed. And you may need to stop the automation and pick up the phone yourself or whatever your process is. But that's being able to monitor that incoming email and then creating different agents to handle those emails is a scenario that I'm really excited to start building out on for a client. So I'm looking for that client that is looking to do something like that because I think it'd be really a fun way to build out agents.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Another thing you mentioned earlier, and I think I have heard some agents actually starting to implement it, would be using a voice bot, almost like a, automated attendant at first when,
Mhm.
a customer calls in to the agency and can kind of act like a human and sort of figure out, okay, how can I help you? Oh, I need to report a claim. Okay, let me get you over to Gene in the claims department, and it
Right.
says that and then transfers it just like an automated, message, but more human. So that's an
Absolutely.
incoming piece. Are you seeing that in some of the businesses you're working with? Is that easy to implement? Are they expensive or what's going on there?
There's yes to all. It's easier to implement. There's tools out there that make it really a lot easier, and it's just getting easier and easier, especially for those folks. I won't say you can't be non-technical because you have to have some technical chops, though you don't need to be a developer and actually doing the coding of the programming of the APIs yourself. You should understand some of the technologies, especially when you're dealing with like the insurance space, and there are regulations and things that you got to make sure you're following and some of those guardrails. Um, but I am seeing voice AI pick up a little bit more and more, and I think even from the customer perspective, it makes it a lot easier than dealing with an IVR, especially if you have an IVR that is 3, 4 layers deep, and it's the never-ending IVR, and you never know what button to actually push. And then when you do finally make a choice, it's wrong and it kicks you back to the front of the menu or hangs up on you. So having just be able to say, I need to file a claim or I have a question about my policy and then getting right to the right person. Or if, depending on how it's done, it may be able to look up some of that information. Again, there's some security things that you're going to need to be aware of. Um, but that might be also one way to leverage voice AI on the inbound, and then on the outbound, you can have it doing simple things. Maybe it's calling your customer. You're talking about being proactive with your customer. Maybe it's calling the customer because you notice they've fell off the ladder several times, and you say, "Do you want to schedule some time to come in and talk to us?" And then it can schedule schedule the appointment right then and there without you even having to do it. Even yesterday, I was walking out of my doctor's office and I had to reschedule my doctor's appointment. And as I'm walking to my car, I use an email platform called Shortwave, which is a Gmail based application, but it has incredible AI to it. And I schedule all my appointments through this tool now instead of going to my calendaring because I can open up my email application. And I did it. I said, schedule an appointment with the doctor on Thursday at 8 a.m. And it did it and it was done. And it was super quick because I know I would have forgotten to do it if I didn't have my AI there helping me out right then and there.
That makes sense. And then on that outbound example, so you're saying that you could set this up, and it would be able to reach out, call a client, and say, "Hey, we've noticed you've had several claims in the ladder falls. We'd like to set you up with an appointment with our risk manager to discuss some of the safety protocols to put in place." So you're saying that bot could say that and then schedule a meeting with them, and that you know that even in calling the client, if you didn't have their cell number and you got, let's say, the front desk, I know I'm making this complicated now, but like, let's say you got,
start thinking.
Yeah, the general number. I wondered if it could, say, "Hey, can I speak to Sally?" I mean, well, knowing it wasn't Sally answering, I mean, is it that sophisticated, or someone's got to be kind of watching it happen in real time and, shadowing it? Like, have you seen that sort of in action? Yeah.
So there's two things there. One, never trust AI. So let me throw that out there and I'll get back to that. But two, I'm fairly confident with the technology out there that you could have it, once it detected a voice, go, "Hi, this is, Dale with XYZ company. I'm looking for Joe," and or whatever it is, and then have it wait or talk to the person to some degree. So that said, when I go back to, trusting AI, I think AI always kind of needs a big brother. I don't completely trust it to do everything on my behalf. I'm always there kind of spot checking what it's doing, because it can make mistakes. It does make mistakes. And so you do need to be watching for it. And a good example, especially around that voice AI space, was McDonald's. They started rolling out here in Kansas voice AI in their drive-throughs. I thought it was amazing. I used it. My daughter she's 8, loves going to McDonald's. And we would go there, and I was finally able to have a put an order in with somebody who wasn't a grumpy teenager, who clearly didn't want to be there, who I can actually understand because they weren't using a broken headset, and the volume was so bad, it was all crackly. And just being able to tell this bot, which to me it was a very clear bot, what my order was, and I thought it did a great job with corrections. And it did a really, really good job. However, there was so many edge cases, and this is kind of the thing with any AI, there's going to be edge cases out there, that there were so many edge cases that it was failing at, that McDonald's decided to pull it. I don't know what those edge cases were, because it worked, 90, 100% of the time with me. But that's, McDonald's did pull it because of that. And even when we're talking about like monitoring AI, I was even fighting with my chat bot today because I was looking for it to format in a very specific way. And no matter how many times I told it to format it that way, it would do it after I reminded it to do it, but then it'd go right back to formatting the way it was. And I'm starting to wonder, is it the language model I'm using? Is it the platform I'm using? But I don't, I always have to watch it is my point, and to make sure that it's giving me the output I expect.
P&C agents, have you run into Byberg, which is a Berkshire Hathaway company quoting workers' comp for either your prospects or clients? Well, great news. Insured Solutions, a national MGA, has an appointment that is set up to allow you to quote, bind, and service Byberg at your agency. And the coverage is in all states. It's A-rated. Startups are even accepted. There's $125,000 maximum premium. And some of the tough industries they write are construction, transportation, that includes towing and parcel delivery, manufacturing, security guards that are armed and unarmed, mold remediation, and many more. So go to our website at insurancesolutions.net, click the Get Appointed link. We'll get you logins for you and your team, and can set up a webinar for training if you'd like. Also, feel free to email info@insurancesolutions.net, and I can handle the submission myself, or call 770-402-5343. Be glad to speak to you and give you more detail. Thanks. You're right. It's like it's probably not there yet. And I think agents, and I know I would be this way, would want to be careful not to tick off a client and like show how impersonal I'm being by sending out this bot to try to set this appointment, and an important subject. And if it screws up, then it looks bad on me. So maybe in thinking through it a minute, maybe on an outbound marketing to prospects would be a little better because there's no prior relationship. So if it does make an error, then at least, you didn't have that as a customer anyway. And so, and telemarketers make, a bunch of errors by, all the time, the way they speak or whatever. But have you seen any bots that around that have been able to maybe set appointments with a prospect to have, in other words, create and have enough of a conversation to even engage them to say, okay, yeah, I will set that appointment? Because I mean, it's hard enough when we do it ourselves and having to deal with objections and so on, and making it sound, like a normal conversation,
Right. And so, as a matter of fact, there are tools out there that do that, and it's done through email, and you might be able to do it through voice as well, as far as like from a prospecting perspective. The challenge is it's kind of going back to your point on not if, but when it makes a mistake, how big is that mistake going to do, and are you going to catch it in time, or are you, it's automation. Any kind of automation, there's going to be sometimes some kind of issue that happens, and are you going to catch it before the automation happens? And I've learned enough that I've screwed up automation enough where I've sent the wrong email to a person, or done something dumb. And I talk about like learning through your own errors. I've probably made every possible mistake out there, and so I'm a little bit more cautious. I think I have not yet started prospecting with these type of tools, only because one, I want to make sure that it's the right message going out to these folks. But two, I'm on the fence on things like the concept of cold emailing. And as a business owner, I'm sure your agents get them as well, out of the blue emails. And you could tell that this person has no idea who you are, but they're making references to your business, and they're like, all right, you've clearly scraped this data from my LinkedIn page or my website, but you have no idea who I am. And you're trying to make it personal, but it still comes off as really just insincere. But it's getting much more sophisticated, and I have seen some tools out there that are making me kind of at least look at them, because it's gotten so good, and it's just going to continuously get better.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And so also the idea I thought of was the last kind of piece on the voice bot part, but the one thing I thought of, like, we have telemarketing group that we use to contact our insurance agents to talk about, new programs that we're offering when we add a new product, to make sure we get them the info. And so we're not really selling anything, really. We're trying to schedule a meeting with an agent to go over, new ABC program for construction or transportation, something that they'd be interested in typically. So I thought through it that it'd be kind of nice to have it where that telemarketer could shadow the voice bot if they did implement it, to schedule that meeting, / go through, hey, new program for trucking, A-rated carrier. I'd like to schedule a time for you to meet with, Joe. And then again, being shadowed by the telemarketer, so that if it has a screw up or that agent starts asking questions right there, they can just come right in,
I'm sure you can do it. I personally haven't seen that specific use case in these tools yet, because most of them are designed to be able to contact multiple people at once. So it'd be hard to kind of monitor those. But I'm sure you can create a bot that allows for it. I just, it's technology, and I come from the space. A manager at Microsoft of mine early in my career, when I questioned technology, he's like, "It's software. You can do anything," which is absolutely true. So I'm sure you can do it, but I have not personally seen that yet.
Makes sense. And I think you mentioned before that there are some services you've used to go out and look at LinkedIn to get more information on prospects as well. Just so
Mhm.
when you speak to them, you have that knowledge. How does that work on the AI, AI piece to that puzzle?
Yeah, so there's a lot of tools out there that you can use that will do some LinkedIn automation. And I'm not necessarily saying that they should do it, because you got to check whether it violates LinkedIn's terms of service about using automation. But there are tools out there that will go and take a look at, let's say, all the small business owners in Atlanta that may fit a specific criteria. It'll scrape that information, put it into your CRM, and then um, it'll take what it finds and build some of these personalized messages that, and I'm sure everybody's seen it, you'll get this random LinkedIn request or in-mail request across LinkedIn that maybe references your business, or something about your business that was on your LinkedIn page that, to me, it looks like a bot did it. But I mean, that's one way that you can start using those type of tools. There is a tool called Closely, which I've purchased, but I haven't started implementing it yet, to help me find business owners and to do some more outreach. I've just been fortunate enough to have enough inbound business, but I want to start using more outbound tools as I continue to scale as well.
Yeah, just having that data in your CRM so that if you are a producer, as an example, making some outbound calls, you don't have to again send the email. You could just use it for the outbound, and you now have maybe 3 or 4 pieces of information about that client that you wouldn't have otherwise, or had to take the time to go out to LinkedIn before you called them. It'd be nice just to have it right there. So you know exactly what you're looking for, or going to speak about, and try to tie the conversation in a little more, make it a little more personable.
There is. So there's an exciting tool, and I'm getting kind of even more excited about it. And I can look it up because about a month ago I looked at the tool they reached out to me, and I wasn't very impressed. And what it does is it takes a look at your calendar, and then it understands what your product is, what your service offerings is, and then builds these playbooks around your service offering, which I thought was kind of neat. And then it takes a look at your calendar. It takes a look at who you're supposed to be meeting with, or you can tell it, here's the prospects that I'm currently prospecting, and it'll help you build playbooks around that customer and their needs. So the scenario I was looking at even this morning, it was going out to LinkedIn and the internet and finding all this really interesting information about these prospects. And then it would have a section called fun facts. This is what, the fun things that the client wants to do, or the prospect does. And then it'll build these email campaigns around what it was finding, which I thought was really, really interesting. Now, to me, it still came across like it was a bot, but it was very interesting how it was incorporating playbooks with fun facts and information to really make it personable with the prospect. A month ago, I wouldn't have touched the product, but in the last month, I was going, this is kind of neat. And to me, it's $100 a month, which is very pricey for a tool, especially if you have, 5 or 10 different tools you use, and everybody wants 50, $100 a month. You're spending so much money in tools, which is another reason why I love bots, because bots can do multiple things versus these one-off products where, and I don't want to go into a tangent, but everybody again wants the 20, 50, $100, and that bot does really good at one thing, and it's really just a wrapper for ChatGPT. And so, I'm very hesitant about what I spend my money on, but this particular tool I thought was really interesting. And as we're talking, I'll look it up, seeing how I've kind of hyped it up a little bit.
Yeah. Go ahead. I'll kind of scan my next area in the operations piece that I'd like to go over with you.
Sure.
We've talked about sales and marketing a little bit now. kind of moving on how to get more efficient internally.
We'll have a big dead spot in this call, so hopefully I'll be really quick here.
No problem.
So I should have had this prepared. I should have thought about it. But it was just, it kind of just struck me this morning. This is what it was. I'll try to continue looking for it
Yeah,
as
no, yeah,
as
we'll keep going then, no
I don't want to.
problem. You can get your hands on it quickly. So, one of the things that we kind of spoke about earlier was that agents now and their CSRs, they're screening accounts to see if they meet criteria for carriers. And many times they just sort of know it in their head, but it'd be kind of nice to be able to, let's say, upload an accord form with the loss history that has a lot of information. Again, you got to be careful because it's client the information here, but so with the right tool and let it kind of help. And the instruction could be, what carriers that we represent would it fit, to make sure you're sending it to the right carriers for a quote. That's just one thought I had, but I don't know. Have you had, any other ideas about helping streamline when you're reviewing an account about placement or, any of those sorts of things for underwriting or screening the account?
So just make sure I understand, because I was slightly distracted looking up the that URL, which I do have now. But so you're talking about if you're looking at what the customer's needing, being able to match them with the right carrier.
Yes, yes. And then, all these carriers do provide you some of them with their pre-underwriting sort of guidelines. We write these classes of business, we're in these states, and so on. So at least you could get sort of basic, have you thought about, streamlining that sort of thing in terms of with other clients and or this model?
I haven't had a specific use case around that, but immediately what comes to mind is the knowledge base functionality within Text Cortex. And I will say that I am a implementation partner with Text Cortex. So if people decide they want to take a look at it, I also have promo codes we can give out, which give them a discount. But Text Cortex has, again, this concept of knowledge bases, so you can create a knowledge base all around a particular carrier that has all of their information that you're allowed to give out to customers. And you can have multiple knowledge bases, so you could select all, I don't know, 5, 10 carriers or whatever you use to start looking at the right carrier. And you can give it the application, go, here's my client's application. What carrier would closely match or be the best for my customer client? And it'll tell you really, really quick what it thinks. You can also write different personas, which are your prompts that you're using to make that a lot easier. You could put some basic like underwriting, if there's like specific things underwriters normally look for in the prompt.
So yeah,
And I also,
you save that persona, like this is my VP of underwriting persona, and you've trained that to, what the function of that underwriter is doing on a daily basis, and they go through these steps. Is that right?
absolutely. And you can have it, you can even build out templates where it'll ask you those specific steps to make sure you're capturing all that information. But, exactly to your point, you can have your underwriting persona, you can have a marketing persona, and that has all your marketing information in there. So you're not having to recreate these prompts, especially if you're using ChatGPT. I have a prompt that I use. I call it Professor Cortex, which is a forked version of something called a prompt called Professor Synapse. And because I use Text Cortex, I've kind of give a little nod to both platforms and call it Professor Cortex. And it's basically considered the last prompt you'll ever need. And I use it 95% of the time as the only prompt I need, because it'll take what you give it, and it has to be, it could be a short 1 or 2 sentence prompt. It'll understand what your goals are, and then it'll use what's called chain of reasoning. So it'll come up with the different actions that you're looking to do, and then the steps it'll list out the steps in the prompt on what it's going to do to accomplish your goals. And then it'll call or summons the expert agent. So if it's about insurance, it'll create this underwriting agent or this marketing agent. Or if you're trying to figure out how to market insurance, it'll create expert in insurance and one in marketing. And they'll work together to help you come up with your campaigns. That's freely available on my website as well. If people would like it, happy to give out the URL to that as well.
Yeah,
And that's going to be at actionableops.com/professor. And you can use this prompt in ChatGPT. I show you how to implement it into a persona on Text Cortex on my website through a video. But it was originally on ChatGPT.
cool. And I think you said you found that link now for the program you mentioned.
Yeah, the company or the product is called Xenia, which is Zinnia, and their website is getxenia.com. And again, it's a super new company. Their CEO reached out to me on LinkedIn to look at the product. It's very promising. I think it's expensive. I would not personally purchase it just yet, but who knows what it's going to look like in 2 weeks? But because it's really it is really cool.
That's very nice.
And I think they're on to something. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say I appreciate you kind of sharing that info with us, and so people who are more into research right now can just kind of jump on and check it out.
Absolutely. And anything that helps you kind of build that relationship with your customers or your prospects, I think is incredibly important. Especially if, I'm kind of an introvert. Connecting with people doesn't come natural to me. So it takes a lot of work to find those commonalities with people. So a tool like this certainly has the potential of being incredibly helpful. So I'm sure once that develops just a little bit more, it is a tool to keep an eye on, I think.
That makes sense. And then, I mean, sorry I put you on the spot with this question. If you don't know, no worries. But I'm starting to get in the insurance space. We've seen some advertising coming through email about robotic process automation, and it's basically being an agent like you're describing and taking and doing multiple steps. Like it would pull down your policy information from, let's say, Ivan, which is a tool that many of the agencies use, and it goes out, collects this policy information when a policy is produced for a new client, and it will title it the way you teach it to title it, and then save it in a certain area in your agency management system or on a shared drive, and just an organizational scenario where normally that's a person doing that, and it does it at night so that it doesn't, disrupt anything that's going on during the day in the agency. I mean, would you almost say these agents now, the way that things moving so fast, are becoming this sort of robotic process automation model too? Because the way, it has multiple steps, the way you described it, just like this.
Yeah, there's, I think, a very fine line between like that and creating an agent. I mean, at the end of the day, they do very similar things. An agent, kind of an AI agent, leverages they're based off of artificial intelligence. So they are able to think a little bit more freely and come up with their own conclusions and kind of learn and grow versus like what I think you're describing, which there's nothing wrong with those type of tools, which they do a task. And that's all they do. And it may be incredible.
They can log in. They could even go on a website and log in, with a username and password, right? I don't know if an agent can do that or not. If you give it the username and password.
You can pass it credentials.
Okay.
Absolutely. So I think it just depends on the tool. There's a tool that I use called Zero Work, which is exactly that. It does automation, and where it runs in the background, I can, watch it kind of open up a window and do its thing. I don't use it a lot because there's a little bit of a learning curve, and I just kind of find that it'd be just quicker for me to do it than try to get this tool to do it. But there's some cool things some of those tools can do, and if they're providing value, they might be great.
Yeah, like what I noticed, unless the bot has already like there's some folks in the industry that have trained the bot to do, these four things with this epic agency management system, what I just described, right? So
Mhm.
it's already been well trained because the firm offering it, is has done the work through other clients, and then you coming in and 3 years afterwards as a new client, you get to take advantage of that learning that it's already
Right.
that training. It seemed like that piece of it was going to be like um really tedious if you wanted to do something new, where it seems like
Yeah.
the agents you described seem a little more flexible, to use and maybe not need as much time and training. Is that fair or no?
Well, it's fair to say their agents are way more flexible than some of these other automation tools. That said, um, I just kind of forgot what I was thinking about when I was talking about it. Um,
More about the training effort, as an agency owner, you don't want the training. I guess you could put a CSR on it or whatever, but the training part is just exhausting,
it
So you
it
want to
is,
do it quickly, kind of like what I've seen Chat GPT, do, like build this PowerPoint for me, on this upload I just put in, right? Like, and
yeah.
boom, it just builds a PowerPoint. So I didn't have to train it to go out, create these slides, make it, I didn't have to do all that work.
Right. And to your point, depending on how much effort you have to put into it. I mean, that's the biggest thing with even with any of these tools. And that's why if there's a company out there that already has stuff built for your tool sets and for the products that you're using, it might be a good thing. Even yesterday, I was talking to somebody in financial services about doing some bots and excuse me, some agents for them, and they're listing all of the tools that only financial planners use. And of course, I'm looking at, okay, how can we scale this to be able to offer to other financial planners? Because to your point, they use very specific software that's geared towards them, and unless you know the APIs and know the tools, there's a lot of work you're gonna have to put into it to learn it to be able to get it to do what you want it to do. So there may be a lot of value to an already created automation tool that's out there,
Yeah,
depending
the
on what it
pricing on
does.
these are typically like, XYZ, thousands of dollars up front, 5, 10, 20 grand for, unless they already have it built. They have it built, let's say 5 or 10 grand, and then like 1,200 or $1,500 per month, based on the minutes used of it, of the task and things of this nature. So it can get pricey. I keep trying to compare it to like nearshore, costs of like India or even, Colombia, Mexico, where you can get a 40 hour, a week worker for about 1,500 to 2 grand a month, that can just do this redundant task. So it's gotta be cost effective. Is it on the, I mean, let's say we hire you to do the work to set the agent up. I mean, is there any other ongoing cost typically after it's created, unless it needed some help, training or correcting it?
So it depends on kind of how it's negotiated. And a lot of it depends on usage fees or API fees. If we're getting charged for API usage, like ChatGPT charges, it's just pennies, or a fraction of a penny, but those pennies add up. So it just depends on the software itself. Do we need to purchase a license to access the tool? And that's kind of what we're like evaluating with this financial services company, whether we're going to have to buy licenses to access the tools to get to the APIs. Um, there's a lot of red flags that go on when you start talking about outsourcing some of this stuff. Um, and I do it. So full disclosure, I do it. My bookkeeper's in the Philippines. I've used people in one of my technical guys is in India, and I have one in Pakistan. So I do use them all the time. I'm always very careful what information people have access to, especially if they're logging into your systems. You just want to make sure that they have their own login. Or you're doing password sharing through like 1Pass, tools where they don't actually have your password. They just are able to click a button that it logs in on your behalf.
Right. Yeah, I
Um,
use 1Pass. I know what you mean for just my
yeah.
personal side of things and some business. But so then if there's not a lot of AI, I mean a lot of API scenarios associated with the agent, if it's just programming it to do some of the things you described, would you say it's a more cost-effective solution than this robotic process that I mentioned?
I mean, it certainly could be. It just depends. Everything's a just depends. So it's kind of like going
How
insurance.
sophisticated you're making it, yeah.
Absolutely. How sophisticated it is, what it does, how much is it something that I have and that I could just kind of reuse and put your variables in there? Is it something that we're going to have to build from the ground up? How long is it going to take to build? How much is my time worth? But to be honest, there's, we, excuse me, got more recently into building agents because there's a lot of opportunity there. And it's been great to
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
So
And we're kind of, coming into the end of our podcast, but can you
yeah.
go into a little bit about, now a little more of an elevator pitch about how you could help a business, either a client of the agency that's interested, or the agency itself, the owners itself, like, how do you operate? How does someone engage you, and what do you do?
So they can always reach out to us if they have any questions about AI in general, or they want to be able to save the cost of an employee and leverage technology. We can certainly help. So we really help business owners kind of take a look at what their AI roadmap already is, what they're looking to accomplish. And then we provide training on AI. We provide consulting around, again, their AI roadmap, their policies, their governance. We talk to them about, building out policies and making sure people are aware of how to use AI, which I think is really important, especially as more regulation is coming on board. And some business owners don't realize that you shouldn't, as we talked about, just allow employees to start using ChatGPT, because there's a whole lot of area around who actually owns that information that comes across it. And so we work with business owners in that area as well. And we're starting to do a lot of these agents to help automate the work and make things easier for employers. So we can certainly help folks with AI and teaching them AI or building out tools for them.
Got it. And so just based on the need of the client, you have that discussion and then come
Mhm.
up with a proposal for pricing for them to engage you. And then you have some tools internally that you've selected that they could, if they wish, they could, purchase a license, what have you, to use that once you're set things up for them, right?
Right. We would deploy an agent to their website, or we would onboard them to like I said, Text Cortex, and we'd show them how to use it, how to build their personas, how to build their knowledge bases. Um, and they don't pay us for like Text Cortex. We're an implementation partner, so Text Cortex always takes care of us. I also did some time in law enforcement, so I try to be very ethical. I think I am very ethical with my clients. So if I'm not the right guy, I'll always be forward and tell you I'm not the right guy. Or if I think you don't need AI, I'm not looking to make a buck just to make it. I'm there to really try to be of service to people and make their lives easier. And if there's a project that's too complex for me, I'll tell you and try to find the right person for you, because
Right,
we can't take.
we thought about something might be just better, a lot after COVID, a lot of agents have started using virtual assistants, to do
Mhm.
administrative work in the accords and loss data, agency management, saving all data in a systems, CRM work. So sometimes, as we just discussed, it's more cost effective just to have a human do the work,
Absolutely. And
Um,
there's a lot of scenarios where I don't think AI should replace humans. And I think that as there's going to be some jobs that are lost to AI. I think um, there's always going to be a need for that human relationship and that human component within AI, especially around oversight.
Makes sense. So then, what's the best way for someone to reach you? Like email, phone, if they have questions.
Sure. If you have questions, you can always send me an email at DALE at actionableops.com. That's Actionable Ops. That's obviously our website as well. And just shoot me an email, and we'll be able to get you taken care of.
And what's the name of your book again on Amazon so that people can, if they want to purchase it,
So it's the Ultimate AI Guide to Small Business Success. Oh,
perfect.
hopefully you can read that.
Well, perfect. Well, Dan, we appreciate you coming on and sharing the time. I think we should have a part 2 on this at some point. Because
I agree.
I mean, I didn't get to hardly any of my other questions.
I was bummed when you said we were coming up on time, and we certainly we are.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely get you back on, and I know by that point probably that we do it, it'll be things have changed even more in quantum leaps, in the industry. But I appreciate you sharing, and I kind of like the fact that you are already working with small companies, and it's not necessarily insurance centric, because I think it's a blank canvas at this point on what some of the insurance agencies might want to gain, out of adding more AI to their operations or to help their sales teams. So I think you're seeing a good mix of everything. And, now that we've talked, and maybe continue to, narrow it to insurance when you do speak to someone as well.
Sure, absolutely. I'd be, look forward to the next time I'm back. Maybe I'll have a lot more bots and agents ready for agent or for insurance agents.
Yeah, I'd like to see some demos of that. It doesn't necessarily have to be in
Absolutely.
insurance. We could do just some regular sales and marketing, because again, that applies to everybody.
Of course.
Next time we get you on, so that'd be fantastic.
Absolutely. Would love to.
And thank you again. Thanks a lot, Dale. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
We'll talk to you soon.
All right. You too, Eric.
Thanks again for tuning in to Insurance Shop Talk. If you enjoyed our deep dive into the latest trends, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Until next time, I'm Eric Stein, and this has been Insurance Shop Talk.